Mike Batson writes in, we need Rantanen. That is a peculiar conversation because he was dealt like a month ago, but there are a lot of people wondering if Rantanen could get dealt again. Conversation came out over the weekend. There's been numbers exchanged. Unsurprisingly, Carolina coming in, it sounds like under 14 million bucks. I'm sorry to break it to anybody there. It's not going to get the job done. I'm sorry. Like that's just not going to sign Mikko Rantanen. I heard it's around 110, 8 years. I think you're going to have to exceed that if you're Carolina. And they don't seem like the team who's going to pay the money necessary to bring and sign a guy like Mikko Rantanen, which means he could be back on the market here in the next 11 days leading up to the trade deadline, March 7th. But the Leafs have been linked to this guy, and I have no clue why or how they'd make that happen in the next 11 days, especially with Carolina, who is a bona fide cup contender.
Yeah, linked to the Leafs by people who forget there's a salary cap, I guess. We're talking like if you unload Mitch Marner, you could put on a Rantanen, but I don't think that's on the table right now. And how? It's not happening. Carolina is notoriously cheap. Their owners do not like to spend money. It is not a very well kept secret that they're a cheap organization. So I imagine they'll dig their heels in on their number, but I just can't help but think that to get rid of Natchez and to make the deal that they had to get Rantanen to Carolina, they would have had a pretty solid idea of what they could do with locking him down. And it just doesn't seem like that was the case. It would be wild for them to lose him. Obviously, you would need to get a lot back in return if you're not going to sign him. And the time's ticking here. So I imagine they're scrambling, racking their brain with every possibility to make something happen, whether it's signing him or getting as much in return. But you can't give up what they gave up and not have a whole lot to show for it after the fact if you can't sign that guy.
As Zach Phillips writes in, you can get Rantanen for 2.3 mil against the cap, and maybe they retain salary again. You just never know. But for me, it was more so like, what are you giving up? If you're Carolina, you're not looking to recoup those assets. You're looking for players who are going to be slotted onto your roster that are going to help you compete for a cup this season. I don't think the Leafs are a fit to make a deal with Carolina for Rantanen right now.
You could get him for 2.3 million. I have not gone down that rabbit hole on all the double retention and whatnot, but all I know is that to get someone, you have to give something, and people don't give you players like him for not much, and they don't eat salary for no reason. There's caveats and things that are in there, and we just don't have. The Toronto just doesn't have the depth and the pieces to trade to make it to make the person you're dealing with feel like you're getting a deal that can get done. And I think that no matter what Tree Living shakes at people, I think there's just not going to be enough interest for what he has to offer because they're thin in draft picks and prospects and guys that are on good contracts. For example, it's kind of the opposite. So we'll see. Again, interesting times, but I'm glad we're not Carolina having to deal with that situation.
Yeah, folks in the chat saying it can work. Yes, it can work. We're not disputing that. At least, like I am not. From a money standpoint, the double. If you recall, the third team in the trade, the three-way deal, so the money was retained, so they can make it work financially. It's more so like, what are you giving up to get the player in Rantanen again for a team like Carolina, who is a bona fide cup contender, but it's just such a weird situation, like how you make that deal and not find a way to re-sign the guy. But it happened last year with Jake Gensel. But you look at what Martin Necas is doing right now for Colorado alongside Nathan McKinnon. It's like, wow, the asset management doesn't look very strong right now if they can't re-sign Rantanen here in Carolina.
I know it almost looked like that deal was like a total surprise to a lot of people. Usually a deal of that magnitude, you have a sit down, you have a talk, and you get on the same page. But it seemed like it was just like a trigger pull, and that's showing up now with some of the rumors going on that they may not be able to sign him, which I thought was kind of a foregone conclusion when that deal went down. But stranger things have happened, I guess. It's an interesting thing to watch.
Put it this way, the folks in the chat make a great point. Carolina needs a goaltending. What if Carolina approaches you hypothetically and it's like, we'll think about it. Would you include one of Stolarz or Woll in a trade? What would you say?
Tough, man. I mean, it would be tempting. I mean, we do have kind of an embarrassment of riches with both goalies, as we've talked about, but you kind of need that, and you're going to have to rely on that. And are you going to be too thin if you unload a Woll? But then Rantanen's pretty appealing. It's an interesting thought, man. I imagine something like that would have to happen in order to get a deal like that across the finish line, which I don't know. I don't know how much Tree wants to rock the boat. It's going to be interesting to see.
Make sure to check out more of our content right here on the Leafs Nation YouTube page. We got long form interviews, we got clips, we got epic rants by Jay Rosehill. We simply have it all. And don't forget, you can find out much more at theleafsnation.com. Thanks so much for watching.